Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. And High Voltage is a blast. I spent way too much time today. I'm recording super late at night because I spent a ton of my day playing High Voltage. I think it's a blast. I love this game mode. I love how it changes Marvel Snap. But I know people need decks. So I dug into the untapped stats for the high voltage mode, and I came up with 10 decks for players of all different levels that they can play in order to succeed at this new, really fun way to play Marvel Snap. We are going to do 2 all Series 3 budget decks with above a 70% win rate, 2 low sample crazy win rate decks, as in like high 70s to 80%, but have lower samples, so could come down, the 2 best high sample high voltage decks, then 3 weirder decks. I think that they're like strange decks that are very interesting that we can play, and then the deck that I've been playing the most, that I've had the most success with. So that's what the 10 decks we're going to look at are. And after that, I've got 2 last slides where after a day of the mode, I picked 12 Series 3 and lower cards that are way better in high voltage, and 12 Series 4 and 5 cards that I think are way better in high voltage, should you want to build your own decks and figure out how to do things yourself. But before we get to the decks, I'm going to ask you to hit that sub button, like, and comment if you're willing. We're trying to hit 15,000 subs by the end of the year, and we're absurdly close. Thank you so very much to our amazing and incredible supporters for getting us close way before we thought we'd even be approaching it. We bring you the most Marvel Snap content in the whole game. Every single day, we cover 4 new decks. We have a full deck guide with turn-by-turn guides every single frickin' day, 7 days a week. We cover all the Marvel Snap news. We have an hours-long podcast with some of Marvel Snap's biggest names. If you love Marvel Snap, if you want the best and most Marvel Snap content, the best decks from the best players, hit that sub button. Liking and commenting not only helps us be shown to more people with the YouTube algorithm, but it can win you a season pass. How this works is, as long as you're subbed, if you comment on this video, and I'm going to tell you right now what to comment on this video, comment what you like about high voltage and what you're playing in high voltage. As long as you're subbed, commenting that enters you to win an Agent Venom season pass. Nice and simple, right? Okay, our first voltage deck is Cheap Patriot. This is an all Series 3 deck. This is a 77% win rate deck in 52 games. It is the second highest high voltage deck there is, which boggles my mind until I really thought about it. So Patriot has been incredible in this mode. As everyone's trying to do a lot of things, they end up with clunky hands. Patriot doesn't really do clunky hands, it just does high power. What you'd really like to do, the key and most important card here, is not actually Patriot, it's Onslaught, because Onslaught on Blue Marvel, Patriot Khazar, is how you get all your power out. If you can do that with Ultron, you've won the game. If you have Doctor Doom, I would probably run Doctor Doom here as sort of like a backup Ultron, but like you have that much power because you can make that whole combo happen now without any shenanigans. What else makes this deck strong? Well, it's honestly shocking to see the Misty Knight, Cyclops, Shocker, Abomination. You can replace those with a ton of cards just very easily, right? I think Abomination's a little underrated in Patriot decks. We often see really high win rate Patriot decks that feature Abomination, but a lot of these other cards don't really need to be here. What I do think needs to be here is Scarlet Witch and Cosmo. Cosmo is great. A ton of people, you're going to see a ton of decks that are running cards like Black Panther and Arnim Zola and so on and so forth as we go through this video. Cosmo nopes those and gets those free wins. The other thing is most of the bad locations are gone, but stuff like Bar with no name or is not gone, and having a Scarlet Witch to sort of steal that hard to reach location at the end of the game is absolutely insanely strong because you very often just have the extra energy to do that. This deck has been very, very impressive. We have what I think is a better high collection level Patriot deck in yesterday's video from our friend W, one of the best deck builders in the game. So if you want to check out yesterday's high voltage video, you can get that deck there as well if you don't want to play this budget version. All right, again, Series 3 only. No Series 4 or 5 cards. Another Series 3 only deck, though, is this Shuri deck. This is Shuri Red Skull Taskmaster. This high voltage deck is insanely powerful. So, I mean, when you can Shuri Red Skull on one turn sometimes, that's crazy strong, right? When you can Red Skull Taskmaster on one turn, you can end a turn with Shuri, that's crazy strong. A 16 power moving vision is incredible. This list was about a year and a half ago the best list in Marvel Snap, and it has since fallen from grace as more things are powerful. But again, in game modes that lack consistency, when you're able to just drop 28 power in 2 lanes, you can often win. People have to see their Shang-Chi. A lot of people aren't even running Shang-Chi, and so you're just able to go over the top. Hell, and you have armor in 1 lane. You also have, if you don't see Sauron, to turn off your negative abilities, and you remember you can turn them off as long as they're not on the board. Hand and deck, they get turned off from Sauron. That's obviously great for Lizard, great for Ebony Maw, and great for Red Skull, and great for Typhoid Mary, but you could also Enchantress Lizard, Typhoid Mary, and Red Skull for surprise power swing. Also, Enchantress has defensive value. There's still plenty of Iron Man. There's still plenty of ongoing throughout this mode that you're able to answer with this list. This list puts out a ton of power, Series 3 only, 73% win rate in 48 games, worth playing for any of my budget players who are still looking for the high series stuff. Go win your vaults easily with this deck. Before we go forward, though, some of you are regulars here and are wondering where the regular video is. We have 4 decks that we do every day, full deck guides for. That video is not gone. We're going to release it later in the day. But if you'd like to see that deck now, that's on the $1 tier of our Patreon at patreon.com/snapjudgments until it goes live. In addition to getting that video nice and early, you also get an archive of all the decks we cover, 4 decks a day, which means you have a nice, healthy archive of different decks to try. And it gives you access to our tournaments. We run many, many tournaments over on our Discord, and the $1 Patreon and up get access there. So if you're interested in checking out that video, please do check out patreon.com/snapjudgments. All right, this is the highest win rate high voltage deck, and it's only 45 games. But we've got a lot of 45 games that don't touch 80, and there's not anything above 20 that hits 80%. Cool. So 80% win rate, this is one of the best lists. And this one is fundamentally built around several conceits. We're going to talk about a lot of the same cards in different decks, so I'm going to focus on some key cards here. Starting with Baron Zemo. Baron Zemo is absolutely incredible when you run into opponents that are running all the big guys decks. Sometimes you'll get an Ebony Maw, but Ebony Maw is the cheapest thing in a lot of these decks, and basically turning Baron Zemo into a 3/12, that's pretty freaking good. Other key cards, Super Skrull does an amazing job at answering the meta right now. There's just enough ongoing people trying to do Sarah nonsense, people trying to do Iron Man nonsense, that having a Super Skrull can completely wreck their game plan. But the real key here, and the thing that we're going to focus on for this list in particular, is Wave. Wave on the last turn of the game often means you can play 3 high-cost cards. You should almost always have at least 12 energy on turn 3, right? In this mode. So that means you can go... the key combo here is Black Panther, Zola, Odin on Zola. And if you can do that, you just put a million power everywhere. Nothing's beating that. Unless your opponent has Shang and Shadow King and gets really lucky, you win. But let's say your opponent's going for a combo deck. Great. Play Eliath out and then Zola that. Or if you know your opponent's going to play like Infinite, then you can play Leader and Odin or Leader and Zola and just get a million copies of cards that way. She-Hulk is often cheaper because so much of your combo is based on around playing turn 2 Wave. If you can pull that off, She-Hulk is often cheap enough to fit in even around the combo that you're playing. Insanely powerful deck, insanely powerful cards. We'll talk more about other pieces in this in more detail as we go forward. So 80% win rate, 45 games. You need Eliath. I'm going to say you need Eliath every time Eliath appears. You can play these decks without Eliath. What Eliath does is it says I'm immune to combos, or I'm at least semi-immune to combos, and I'm semi-immune to Shang-Chi. So I think you need Eliath, but like if you don't have Eliath, you can put Magneto or whatever in there. It's so much worse. Be forewarned. Red Hulk can be Magneto. That is my standard change. We'll talk about why Red Hulk is good next time he shows up. And Baron Zemo can be Morph. We just explained why Zemo is good. All right. Next up, we have a 72% win rate in 67 games. High voltage deck. This one is Hela Discard. My dear Hela players who are very sad, there's some guy who commented for like 3 straight days really, really upset about the Hellcow nerf at free-to-play players needed Hela. There's lots of decks that free-to-play players can play, but in this mode, Hela lives just fine. Because this mode does not rely as much on Hela seeing Hela, right? You can still do all the Hela shenanigans that you know and love, but you can also just get lucky and drop a Giganto and Red Hulk. You can end up passing a turn 1, have enough energy to turn 2 just drop an Infinite and another card, right? That level of power is through the roof and changes how you can and must play Hela, but Hela is extremely successful here. Also, dear friends, anyone who actually likes Hela, the video that we talked about that's on the Patreon that'll be live on the channel later, that one, guess what? Has a 70% win rate on ladder in 50 games Hela deck. Hela is not nearly as dead as we think it is, but whether Hela is dead or not, it is certainly not dead in high voltage, and you should try this list, which has been very successful. There's a lot of different versions of this floating around, and it's worth playing. You need Blink, though. You only see 8 of your 12 cards in high voltage. You need, with Jubilee, you'll see 9. That's still 3 that you're missing. Blink goes to get your Hela for you. And that's super important for obvious reasons, right? This one has a 17% win rate in 67 games, and Red Hulk can once more be Magneto. All right, 69% win rate in 190 games is this one. This is a fairly large sample, and this one is saying I'm going to run all the stuff that is specifically good in this mode. Let's focus first on Havoc. You can just play Havoc. You get so much energy in this mode that you can just casually play Havoc on turn 2. That means you have a 12 at the end of the game. That's it. That's really nice, right? You can play it later sometimes, but like that's not the goal. Your goal is to just drop Havoc early and then have a bunch of extra power. Baron Zemo works much the same way. We already talked about that. If people are playing a bunch of high-cost stuff, much like for Baron Zemo, then Morph gets better. Early Morph is very likely to hit one of their big cards. Same thing, extraordinarily powerful. This list is a great spot to talk about the power of Red Hulk, because the energy curves are so awkward. That's why Havoc is here. Red Hulk often grows, and if you see Red Hulk early, seeing a 6-13, a 6-16, a 6-19 is not out of hand, and thus you can win that way. Arrow is here largely for Scar. She is helpfully disruptive in several situations, but she is here largely for Scar. Having something you can play even on turn 1 that will make your Scar cheaper is super strong. This one doesn't run Wave, so instead of running Wave, it's trying to get a cheap Scar and then run like a Scar and Alioth, a Scar and Blob out. Alioth on the second turn of the game is perfectly acceptable, just in case you were wondering. Be careful with early Blob. There's enough Shadow King in the format that you can be a little iffy, but sometimes you just sort of whiff on some of your big stuff and you still have a chance to win because Blob just can solo a frickin' lane. And if you can Blob and Shang, then a lot of your early awkwardness just sort of goes away. All right. This one has a lot of changes. 69% win rate, 190 games. You need Alioth and Blob. Sorry, my neck's killing me. Scar can be She-Hulk. Kara can be Armor. Havoc can be Mirage or Cable. I think Mirage is severely underrated in this mode. People, again, if they're playing big things, you play Mirage, you get a 2-2, but you also get their thing but bigger, which has a lot of value. Zemo can be Juggernaut. We'll talk more about Juggernaut later. And Red Hulk can be Magneto. All right. Next up, I guess we'll talk more about Juggernaut now. 69% win rate, 230 games. This one sort of ditches the Morph. Well, it doesn't sort of. It completely ditches the Morph Zemo thing we've been seeing in so many decks otherwise, and instead it runs Juggernaut and Cosmo. That gives you some play into Hela, but also it says I can win a game with a little less threat. People aren't really filling every lane, so if you can spend part of your last turn doing something like Panther, like let's say Wave, coming in. So you can do like Panther and then you can Odin that Panther and Juggernaut. You've got a lot more chance of winning. If you Panthered in a lane that they're not competing in, you can Zola that Panther out to 2 other lanes and Juggernaut and win a lane for super cheap. Cosmo is obviously great with a lot of the ongoing stuff. Again, we're seeing a ton of ongoing here, right? Look how many ongoings are in this list. Cosmo is super incredible. At the end of the game, you can get priority. You have Alioth or Cosmo to shut that down. And this list is greedy, but it is so strong. Again, we are relying on Wave combos, Jubilee combos, so on to win this game, but we have a lot of them and a lot of ways to compete. All right, so this is 69% win rate, 230 games. I think you need Alioth and Blob. I think this one, more than any other, you really need Blob because you do not have early plays. This list is reliant on end-of-game power. So Red Hulk can be Magneto, and we're going to look at a version that's similar to this pretty soon, but there's something so weird about it that we have to talk about it. I'm really sorry. So that's like 2 decks away. Ready for the next one? Next one, discard. All right, first and foremost, I think you need Scorn to play discard from now on. So if you love discard, you can go get Scorn. If you need a more nuanced take, the video that will be up later today, I ask every Thursday, I ask the top players in Marvel Snap, people that are at the top of the Infinite leaderboard, I shoot them a message and I go, what do you think of this new card? And then they give me their opinion of it and I share that with you. That's in later's video. So if you're like being sort of iffy about whether or not you should buy Scorn, please make sure you watch that video before you do so. Scorn is, however, a requirement for Apocalypse Dracula discard. I don't think it's a meta deck, but it is a requirement. It's part of why this deck has so much power. Having access to like a 110 is part of why this deck has enough power to compete. Morbius is very often like a 210, a 220, right? So you have all these cheap power scalers. Gambit is almost guaranteed to hit a big target. A free 4/7, a free like 25 to 30 power Apocalypse, right? Or 4 cost 25 to 30 power Apocalypse. And if everyone's running sixes, Moon Knight can absolutely ruin their lives and plans. That's fundamentally the list. Everything else here is an enabler, but they're all enablers that have good stats, so this one is able to compete. Its win rate is a little lower, but 65% win rate in 140 games is nothing to sneeze at, and this is worth checking out. You do need Scorn, Proxima, and MODOK for this list. If you don't have Proxima, don't buy Scorn, but you do need those 3 cards, and I will give you that review for this later. All right. This is the biggest sample size with the highest win rate that I could find. 62% in 390 games, and it's just straight up Zoo. It even has a card that I don't like even slightly in it. I don't have any idea what Kara is doing in this list. Kara is protecting sixes, except Mockingbird's not in Chong range, and is protecting ones, except no one's running Killmonger in this mode. So you don't need Kara. Kara can be one of 3 cards. The one not listed on the next slide is Shadow King. Everything else is just I put up so much power so wide with this list. It's great. The power of Zoo and Patriot in this mode has honestly impressed the living crap out of me. I am genuinely, I don't want to say thrilled because I'm not like happy about it necessarily. I don't really play Zoo, but I am genuinely really, really happy about how cheap these lists are and how competitive they are. You need 2 cards to make this list work. You need Marvel Boy and Gilgamesh. Everything else is low series. Kara can be Cosmo or Super Skrull or Shadow King. Nico and Kate Bishop. We're looking at Hydra Bob, Ebony Maw, the cheapest, biggest power you can get. You've got Khazar, so you'd like them to be ones. All good? Real simple. This list is awesome. Play it. You will not be sad to play it. Zoo is simple. Zoo is powerful. Opponents like think they know how much power you can have, and then your Gilgamesh just drops, and you're like, it's like, oh, well, never mind. Zoo beat me. I didn't play Zoo. I don't enjoy Zoo, but Zoo beat me a couple times. All right, this is a list that's similar to the other ones, but we have to talk about Kang. So you can sometimes Kang on turn 1, right? It's rare. It's like a 1 in 5 shot or 1 in 4 shot that you can Kang early. Fine. But if you draw Kang on turn 2 or turn 3, you're almost guaranteed to be able to play it. If you draw Kang on turn 2 or turn 3, you just thinned your deck and got an extra draw, and you got information. And that information is pivotal for Alioth and Leader. If you know what your opponent has, and like they're not changing it up in this mode, right? They've got what they've got. They've got their big thing. If you know what your opponent has and you drew an extra card, you've got options that they can't compete with. Especially if you waived the turn before. Right? Now you know exactly where they're likely to do things and what they're likely to do, and you get the extra power from that. The other key card that I want to talk about here is Sunspot. Sunspot goes amazingly with She-Hulk in this. You just have all sorts of extra energy, hence the Red Hulk in the list, right? So you have all sorts of extra energy, and very often you'll just be able to get like a nice cheap extra She-Hulk for no apparent reason, right? Let's say you accidentally get awkward turn 1s, you just play a Sunspot and you got 4 energy, and you're like, I don't really want to play anything else, right? I didn't draw that. Well, now all of a sudden you just have a nice cheap She-Hulk that you can play the next turn so you don't lose that tempo. Absolutely amazing between Sunspot and She-Hulk in this list. And everything else here is stuff we've talked about previously. Doom gives you the ability to go wide because every game is not crazy power. All right, 63%, 97 games, and it's got frickin' Kang. Yep, a 63% win rate Kang deck. We're living in crazy times. Red Hulk can as always be Magneto. The last list we're going to talk about is from my friend BitTwiddle. BitTwiddle does all of my thumbnails. He does my overlays, so if you're interested, please do look him up on Discord. But he sent me the list that I had the most success with thus far. I played this mostly on my phone, so I only went 2-1 on my computer with it. Before I left work, BitTwiddle messaged me. I'm 7-0. I'm 8-0 with this list. So this list has been absolutely incredible. It's running the best curve of I think any list we've looked at that's not a like Zoo list. It's got the 3 ones you want. Sunspot is a 1 you want on turn 1, ideally. Ebony Maw is a 1 you want on turn 3 because you don't want to give up its downside. And then Hydra Bob is just a 1/5 with no downside. Cassandra Nova on the first turn is a 3/8, and you don't want to play Gladiator. So this is about as big as you can make a 3 early in this list, while it also can play for more than a 3/8 if your opponent plays those extra cards, right? But Cassandra Nova is absolutely excellent. We talked about Morph. We've talked about Kara. Talked about Super Scroll, Shang-Chi, Blob, Leader, Alioth, and Scar. The only card I don't love in this list is Blob. I think Blob can easily be She-Hulk, but you want something really big, and having the ability to have Blob that can get to 16 power is very important. Maybe that can also be Red Hulk. There are many options for that card. All right, so please do check out my friend BitTwiddle. You need Alioth, and I'm not sure if you need Blob. I need to test this without Blob, but I think you might need Blob. Scar can be She-Hulk. Scar gets really cheap. Scar's great in this mode. Hydra Bob and Cassandra Nova can be Kate Bishop, Cable Mirage, and Kara can be Armor. All right, cool. So cards that are much better in high voltage. So we've talked about most of these cards already. Sunspot is great. There's extra energy leak all over the place. That extra energy leak turns Sunspot into usually about a 1-4 or 1-5. A 1-4 or 1-5 is great. It's just a casual passive power growth. Ebony Maw is great. It's a turn 3 play, but you, again, will very often find yourself with extra energy, and having 7 power for that extra energy is nothing but upside. The majority of decks remain high power greedy decks, which means when you play Morph, you often get like a 3 power Red Hulk, a 3 cost Red Hulk, a 3 cost whatever, incredibly powerful card. Then we have the Patriot. Patriot is one of the most surprisingly powerful cards in this mode. Only W saw it in advance. I talked to a ton of top players. Only W saw it in advance, but Patriot creates enough power with enough redundancy that it's still extremely strong. Wave breaks the last turn of the game, letting you play often 3/6 drops. I feel like I shouldn't have to explain why 3/6 drops are incredible. If you build your deck to wave and the opponent doesn't, you win. Jubilee, and if you're playing a heavy curve, is an incredible card that you should run. Super Skrull, I think, is the best answer to ongoings. It's better than Enchantress or Rogue in this mode because those are dead cards. But Super Skrull, like the decks that go really all in on ongoing, right? Like they're often running Cosmo, they're often running extra stuff. Super Skrull just says, no, I'm not worried about you. I beat you that way. Black Panther is incredible because you can Black Panther and Zola far more easily than ever before. You can Black Panther and Odin Elaine. You've got more power in your Wongs, for example. Wong's not here, but you've got more power in Wong. Panther has been incredible. He's a revelation in this mode. He's a very mediocre ladder card, but he's great here. Vision, movable power is great. Your opponent has to figure out where to put as much power as they can, and you can use Vision to threaten 3 lanes, but compete in 2, which is how I've been using it, and it's a great success. Zola is great for Panther. We talked about that. Zola is also great for Odin. Zola is also great for Doom. Zola is also great for Leader. Zola's got a million great targets here. This is the best Arnim Zola will ever be in Marvel Snap. And then we've got Onslaught, who not only has Patriot, but Onslaught with Iron Man is incredibly strong here, like back-breakingly strong, lane-winningly strong. Onslaught with Sarah is incredibly strong here. You can very often get both of them out together, especially if you wave on turn 1. There's a million ways to sort of break Onslaught here. Being able to play Onslaught first and then play stuff on Onslaught has changed the math of Onslaught in very real and powerful ways. Then we have She-Hulk. She-Hulk is awesome. She gets cheap. Turn 1 is very awkward here. Sometimes you only have 2 energy, but then you have a 4-cost She-Hulk the next turn, and you often have like 7 energy. So you can go like She-Hulk and Morph, or She-Hulk and Zemo, or She-Hulk and, I don't know, Cosmo, and just go to town. And so She-Hulk has been absolutely incredible. That is our Series 4 cards. I'm also going to honorable mention on Moon Knight because people are running so many 6s. Moon Knight has been incredible, but he's obviously harder to fit than these more generally good cards. Our other powerful cards that are very much better, Hydra Bob does not move, so that's always awesome. Havoc plays as a 2/12. I mean, technically he's a 4/12, but like it doesn't matter. Grandmaster has been absolutely great. There's not as much Cosmo as there should be, and there's a lot of ongoing. Like if you just Grandmaster a Panther, right, and then you can still play like a Red Hulk or a Blob somewhere else, you Grandmaster a Blob, and then you get all that extra power. Cassandra Nova is the biggest 3 you've got. This is the mode for Kara. There's just enough Shang-Chi that if you're running all the powerful 6s, you really want it. We've talked about Zemo 4 times. Zemo's great. We didn't cover Copycat, but Copycat's incredible here. If people are only running powerful things, I've gotten 3-cost leaders several times. Copycat is incredible. Symbiote Spider-Man is dangerous depending on how much Magneto you're seeing, but if people are going to cut Magneto and Cosmo to be greedy for Red Hulk or whatever other nonsense, then Symbiote Spider-Man gives you an extra way to do your Black Panther nonsense. It gives you an extra power pump. I'd rather play Grandmaster, but Symbiote Spider-Man is great. We've talked about Kang. A Kang that draws a card is incredible. Knowing what high power stuff your opponent's going to do is incredible. This is Kang's best day ever in Marvel Snap. Eliath, we've talked about. Eliath, I think, is the single most important card to own. That is a Series 4 card for this mode. He is absolutely incredible in turning off whatever complete nonsense BS your opponent wants to do, and there's a lot of complete nonsense BS. He is a tiebreaker winner. And then Red Hulk is a 6'10. That becomes a 6'13 or a 6'19 if you draw him early enough. That seems good. He's just the biggest thing outside of Blob. Blob could easily be here over Red Hulk. I think I'm leaning towards liking Red Hulk more unless you're running ongoing synergies. And then Scar, anything that's big and gets cheaper is great. Also who has been great is Hulkling, who's a 6'12, who's often Scar or whatever else you want him to be. But these are amazing high voltage cards. Cool. That is our high voltage video for today. Please don't forget we've got a second video, and please don't forget our Patrons. A certain tier of support on our Patreon comes with honor thanks every video. We're going to go quickly because it's late and I still have to do a second one. Thank you to Abigail Giesel, Meditator Burnout, Irregardless, David G. Wingfield, Direwolf, LAB, FaThorNewman, Good Dog Gamer, Inc., I Am Frostman, Jane Everett, Corbin, Prime Brian, Ryan Burke, Caretix Lee, Ray, Black Dahlia, Pyrophos, The Goat Seeker, Deadman Falcon, Archangel 3K, Hollowed, Quid Pro Joe, Docty, Kingdom Marvel's Outcrow Content, Fat Nick, Mr. Kerfuffle, Ginger Prime, Philip Brakovich, Haplo, Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone, Rob Silverman, The Biz, Extra Sweet, and Skippy G, Tommy Nyquist, The King of Bros, The Great Kazoo, Jessica Gamble, Ryan Wood, Kepsi Hoda, The Lunar Quest, Quantum Quinn, John Q, Jim Mick Clam, 8th Sage, Models Mod Supreme, Darth Tater, Steven, Brian Coffin, Just Nate Martin, Jason B, who's responsible for that awesome deck archive, Jake D. McDonaldino, The Fuzzy Unlocked Spectrum X, Hoot, Hoot, congrats for hitting Infinite, Hoot hit Infinite for the first time, props to Hoot, Hoot for Hoot, Matt H, DJ McAgix, No Freaking Flex, Ocularis, Mr. Craig Sterry, BG, Jonesy, check out the Triple Threat, Two Ties, the Great Lorm Does, the Pirate King Tuccrr, the Home Minute, and of course, Gunny T, where the T stands for. I didn't do the updated list on this. I have it on the second one. But props to our newest member of this Patreon tier, the King of Canada. Go check him out streaming these lists today on Twitch. Go check out the King of Canada, y'all. Also, check out our yesterday video for high voltage if you're interested in high voltage. And don't forget, we got another video coming for you later. Don't miss out. See you soon for another Snap Take. Peace.